In the mid part of the 1800s, America was being ripped apart. Political, cultural, economic, moral differences were forcing apart the North and the South. Neighbor would turn on neighbor, brother on brother. In fewer places was this more apparent than in the border states. Some states choosing not to secede, but also not joining the Confederacy. Kentucky never seceded, even though there were many within its borders who felt Southern sympathies. Even within Nelson County, we had sons fighting fathers, brothers fighting brothers, neighbor against neighbor. We were a nation, a state, a county divided.
In September of 1861, on the middle branch of Simpsons Creek, and between Bardstown and Bloomfield, a large group of mounted military men started camping. It was known as Camp Charity because of the generosity of the farmers and supporters in the area in sharing food, provisions there. The first to come were the Nelson Grays, commanded by Captain John Crepps Wickliffe. They were a military unit organized in 1860 here in Kentucky, what we might consider the National Guard unit today. They had been split in their loyalties, but the majority of them went with the South, and now they are at Camp Charity, and they're very soon joined by John Hunt Morgan and his Lexington riflemen, coming out of Lexington, not only with men and horses, but also with supplies, including those Union rifles that Washington sent here to arm the Unionists. Morgan decided that his soldiers needed them as badly as the Union. They were loaded on a wagon and brought through Camp Charity. And then, after camping a few days, the whole group would move out when a scout brought the word that an Indiana regiment was moving into Bardstown. Here in Nelson County at this time, we were being invaded by the North, not as a planned invasion, but as a plan to intimidate and influence the Southern feelings here in Nelson County. Northern units, military units, Green soldiers, were coming here with their units. They would come into Louisville, get off the steamboat or train or however they arrived. They would walk or ride out here to Nelson County and camp. Camps of instruction. This is what the Union commanders wanted set up here in Nelson County, alongside the turnpikes, easy to travel from one place to another. Before the fall and winter is over 20 different Union groups were here. They were going to be acclimated to the Southern climate, the food that they could get here in the South, and maybe it was like a boot camp. Today we send our new soldiers to a boot camp. Well, they were sending these very eager volunteers to the boot camp in Kentucky. Well, they learned that life wasn't quite what they expected here. But as they were learning this, they had quite an impact on our community. They were camped along the major turnpikes, the turnpike south going toward LaRue County, Mumfordville, on south we would call it the Jackson Highway at the time, going toward Nashville. They were also on the turnpike going toward Springfield. They were close, they camped close by a spring, a source of water, and a lot of people close together caused a lot of problems because of the illness. All these different soldiers brought the germs from different states, and before you knew it, we had lots and lots of illness. Some of the accounts of the training camps are coming from letters soldiers wrote home to their families, and they talk about how difficult it was. Not just military life, which most of them had never had before, the discipline, the drill, the cooking, taking turns doing the cooking, taking turns learning to march together, learning to take orders, even orders they didn't always understand or approve of, living so close together with a large group of others. The sanitary conditions were terrible. The same stream that you got your drinking water, the horses drank from, the manure from the horses would get into the stream, and this is one reason there was so much sickness. The camps were very close together, even though they were strung out on the creeks. When you have 1,100 men living along one creek, you have quite confusion, you have quite a mess sanitarily. and then also the closeness of personalities. Not everyone liked everyone else, and those kind of tensions always contributed. The soldiers would try to improve their meals by buying things from local farmers, or if they couldn't buy it, sometimes they would liberate a turkey or a chicken. You also had the idea that they fussed a little bit about the cost of things. When they wrote back to Pennsylvania, they talked about buying apples and how expensive the apples were in Kentucky. Of course, our local farmers realized that they had a new market here for their produce. They had Union soldiers who wanted fresh food, who wanted something different, and the farmers were the only ones who had it. So they priced it at what the market would bear. Union soldiers had to get a military pass to come into Bardstown. Those that were camped on the New Haven Road had a guard at the covered bridge that spanned the Beech Fork River. You couldn't get on the bridge and come into town unless you showed your pass. But those that had passes, which must have been numerous, because years later, one of the local ladies told her granddaughter in her remembrances of the wartime that she couldn't step out her back door without stepping on a Yankee soldier. So in a town of our size, a population explosion 5 times our size in soldiers, riding, walking, carousing, all of those actions here in Bardstown probably kept things stirred up pretty well for the 6 to 9 months that this was going on here. These camps of instruction, our Union training camps, were not for a long period of time for each unit. Over the time from the fall of '61 through the winter and spring of '62, the longest group to stay was only 4 weeks. Most of the groups would stay 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks. But they were stopping here, getting their bearings, so to speak, of Southern life and of discipline and training as a soldier, and moving on south.